Hello, everybody. Welcome back to another Oscar predictions update for the month of September. Now, this is later than it would normally be. Obviously, I wanted to wait until after the TIFF Fall Film Festival was over. I know we have New York coming up, but we've just had Venice, Telluride, and TIFF. And specifically, we were getting a lot of updates throughout the past few weeks, and I've been making a lot of ticks to my predictions and changing them a little bit. But I very specifically wanted to wait until after the TIFF Audience Award was announced before officially making my predictions. And I'm glad I did, because The Life of Chuck was announced as the winner, which was a big, big surprise. And for a couple of days, I wasn't really sure what to do with my Oscar predictions. And I heard a lot of conflicting reactions from the top pundits, some of whom were like, well, it's the TIFF audience winner, we gotta put it in Best Picture. And others who were like, maybe this is the exception. And the more I thought about it, the more I decided I'm leaning towards the latter category. Because this movie, while it is well-liked and well-respected, and there are people who are really gunning to bat for it, it was not really considered a top awards movie until it won the TIFF Audience Award. It was not in the conversation. The people who were really liking it were not considering it for a lone screenplay thing or anything like that. It was just not a part of that conversation. Something like American Fiction, which was also a surprise the previous year, that movie, at least people were like, okay, this could get into screenplay, maybe it could get into actor. And so it was in the conversation, people were talking about it. People are really not talking about Life of Chuck in the same way. Outside of that, the movie, 5 days after it won the award, it doesn't have distribution, it doesn't have a release date. It might not even come out this year. And I just keep hearing that the audience at the festival were the type of people who were going to respond to Mike Flanagan and were going to support him, and Now, I'm not completely writing it off. As you'll see when I get to Best Picture, it's in that bottom tier possibility list, but I'm not going to reorganize my whole predictions to put it in there. Obviously, there's a lot of stuff that got shuffled around because of the festivals, and we're going to get into that in specific detail. But just to let you know that I don't think Life of Chuck is going to be a top player, but you're free to disagree with me. So we're going to start with documentary feature, of which I have absolutely nothing to say, because there really wasn't any crazy things going on with documentaries. I think No Other Land got some nice notices, so I moved that up a little bit. But outside of that, it's just nothing to say in regards to documentary, but plenty to say with everything else. If we go up to international feature, I have moved I'm Still Here to the number 2 slot. That one's got really, really strong notices, and I think it's a solid number 2. Now, what's funny, France selected Emilia Perez as their nominee, which I did not think they would. I thought that they were going to go for something like Count of Monte Cristo, and then Mexico would pick up Emilia Perez. But I don't know, just a hunch. But France chose it, so I can no longer count Count of Monte Cristo in there. And we don't know what Mexico is going to pick. Maybe Pedro Paramo. But yeah, we're in that time frame where everyone's making their selections, and you just got to guess what's going to get in and what's not going to get in. Outside of that, there's not a whole lot to say. So I'll move on to animated feature now. Well, we all know for a fact now that Wild Robot is winning animated feature. After those TIFF reactions, it's pretty undeniable. Flows in Memoir of a Snail. I feel like a jerk for leaving that off, because hearing the reactions now, I'm like, that's definitely in. And then Wallace and Gromit, that seems to make up a pretty solid top 5. Obviously, there's still room for something to surprise, but I think we're getting... This is a very interesting lineup. It's not the most commercial lineup for animated feature, but it feels pretty good. And I'm just going to mention this now to get it out of the way. Obviously, I would have liked for The Wild Robot to win the TIFF Audience Award. If that had happened, then we would be having conversations about it being in a top contender for picture. And for the record, The Wild Robot is the better reviewed film of between that and Life of Chuck. So it's not crazy that almost happened. But it didn't even place in the top 3, and I'm not going to be delusional and make the case that it should. Well, I'm sure when I see it, I'm going to love it. I'm looking at those reviews. It's clear that this is that this is one of DreamWorks' very, very best movies. But it's going to win animated feature, and we're going to be very happy for that. And I'm just not going to get my hopes up. For best sound, we have Dune, we have Blitz, we have Emilio Perez. I've added Conclave into the top. Okay, so now here's where I can start talking about movies that really made a big splash at the festivals. And Conclave, it seems from the reaction that this is going to be not a top 5 Best Picture movie, but it's going to be in that 6 through 10 range. This is a crowd pleaser. This is one that people generally like, but it's not one of the more deeper movies. And it's going to be interesting to see how many nominations this gets below the line. And from what I heard, the film's use of sound is very loud and very showy, in a way that some people are saying ruins the movie, but I feel like if it's noticeable enough, the sound branch is going to nominate it. And maybe that's a little bit cynical on my part, but that's just what I'm feeling based on their previous, yeah. And then The Brutalist I have at number 7. So this is one where before the fall festivals, I was hearing rumblings about this movie that it was something special. And I was kind of just like, okay, maybe. I sort of acknowledged it a little bit. And secretly I was like, I don't want this movie to be a contender because that runtime is a lot. And I trust Martin Scorsese to make a movie to keep me entertained for 3.5 hours, but I don't necessarily trust the guy who directed Fox Lux. And so, but after the reviews came out, it became crystal clear. Like, the praise is unanimous, and everyone's saying this is a top 5 movie for Best Picture. So, as you'll see, even though I don't have it on for Best Sound, I have it on in quite a lot of below the line and above the line categories because it's clear that this is a top contender. So, yeah, you'll definitely see more responses about that. I'm very, very happy that this movie has an intermission built into it. So I'm definitely going to enjoy that aspect. I'm very happy that someone thought to bring back the intermission. If only Wicked had done the same. Best Original Song. Speaking of Wicked, that's there, along with Mi Camino, Relentless. Okay, I wasn't really sure what to do here, because this is as good a time as I need to talk about this. Joker, Folly Adieu. In the previous Oscar predictions video that I made, I had removed Folly Adieu from all my predictions except for song, and I said that I just had a feeling this movie was going to be a disappointment, and now it looks like I was validated. Folly Adieu, it didn't get horrible reviews. It wasn't like trashed. There are some people sticking up for it, but it is clear that the movie is, for most people, a step down from the first film. And I think, much like Furiosa, no one's really going to be in the mood to reward this type of thing a second time. So I have officially removed it from almost every category. There's one category where I have it in as a little bonus, but not original song, because no one even seems to be talking about, is there an original song in this? I guess, but those who have seen the movie cannot name what that is. So, yeah. I have Piece by Piece in at number 5, mainly because I wasn't really sure what to put in there. Thought about The Wild Robot, but I'm like, no, I'm gonna... you'll see what I'm doing in the next category, but I don't want to, like, jinx myself too much. And then everything else is like, maybe, we don't know how this category is going to be yet. Everyone has their eyes on the 2 Disney movies. One of them has Lin-Manuel working on it. One of them should have had Lin-Manuel working on it, but we are just going to have to wait and see how those movies do. Best Original Score. Okay, so this is what I was alluding to earlier. have Brutalist in there, have Conclave in there, although again, I've heard that the music is a little too much. At the Oscars, it's very hard to be a little too much. You get nominated for going too much. So that brings me to The Wild Robot. Now, I've decided I'm not gonna spend the next 4 months claiming that Wild Robot needs to be in Best Picture. I'm not gonna advocate it for Best Picture. I decided I need to pick the battles that I can win, and I'm not going to be able to get Wild Robot. No amount of campaigning on my behalf is going to get Wild Robot in Best Picture, but score, that's a lot more doable. Especially since the composer of this film is Chris Bowers, who just last year, Chris Bowers was shortlisted for original score for The Color Purple, a movie that I don't even understand how there was enough original music to qualify, plus the movie was not well received, so the fact that it got shortlisted, to me, seems to indicate that Chris Bowers has a lot of friends in the music industry. So I am all for that. Let's get this movie nominated. With both Pinocchio and Spider-Verse, they almost got into score, and it was a surprise when they missed. So an animated movie just getting into score will at least be a step in the right direction, so that is the battle that I'm fighting this year. Outside of that, there's not a whole lot to add. Ooh, I can talk about this. We did get a first trailer for Blitz. That's one of the few things that we haven't seen yet, but we don't really know how that's going to go, and I'm crossing my fingers that it's going to be great. But it is kind of lower in a lot of my predictions simply because it is the one big unknown factor of the race. For Best Visual Effects, not a huge change. I think the top 8 is exactly the same, so not really anything to go into detail there. Best Makeup and Hairstyling, mostly the same. Having seen Beetlejuice, I think that would be a very worthy nominee in makeup and hairstyling, so I'm putting that in the top 5. And then A Different Man, I decided to remove from the top 5. I know that it's very easy to look at the photo of Sebastian Stan in the makeup and be like, oh, that's getting on for sure. The problem is, as I've been looking into this movie, most of the film takes place after he's gotten the surgery to fix his face. So I don't know how much of that makeup we're even going to see in the movie. And for those who aren't aware, Adam Pearson is not wearing any makeup in the movie. Like, that is genuinely what his face looks like. So I question how much makeup is going to be in the overall film. And yeah, I just find it, maybe it could still get on. I don't know, but I no longer have it in the top 5. So Best Costume Design, hilariously, I just put The Brutalist in the top 5, and then everything else just takes one step to the right. Not a lot of shuffling to do with this category. Best Production Design, slightly more shuffling. I have Brutalist in at number 3, but nothing really showy again. Now, one category where I do have something to talk about is Best Cinematography. This is where I get to talk about Nickel Boys, which those of you who have been following this channel knows I've been very excited for that one. And in the last update, I was talking about how Nickel Boys could be like The Power of the Dog that wins director, and because people were saying very exciting things about the direction of the film. And now that more people have seen it, I still think it's getting into picture and director, as I'll get to, but it's clear that this movie is doing more experimental things than I thought. This conceit that I'm hearing about is that most of the film is shot from a first-person perspective, which is definitely a big swing. And some of the reviews are like, this really, really works. And other reviews are like, it feels kind of gimmicky. So based on the reactions, I feel like this is going to be sort of a Tree of Life, Zone of Interest type thing where it's experimental, but it's well-liked enough to get into Best Picture, but it's not well-liked enough to contend to win. With that said, though, I do have it number one for cinematography, because I think, whether you want to call it a gimmick or not, clearly it's having an effect on people, and clearly it's a bold swing, and it's doing something that none of the other nominees can claim. So I actually feel pretty confident about Nickel Boys at number one for cinematography. Editing, anything notable here? I decided to put Brutalist in there just because of the audacity of that runtime. I'm aware of the fact that I just can't give every single below-the-line award to Dune Part 2, and so actually I think it's just winning production design, visual effects, and sound, maybe score, so it's not winning that much, and I feel like the movie's already kind of fading from memory a little bit with all of these exciting new Fall Film Festival releases, so it'll be interesting to see how it continues to play with them once we get to the actual award season. Adapted screenplay. So I still have Sing Sing at number one, even though I'm no longer as confident in the film as a whole in Best Picture. The top five for screenplay are still the same. I do have Life of Chuck at number 6, because if it does come out this year, this seems like the best place for it to contend. But again, we don't know for sure how well that movie is going to hit with Academy voters. Oh, and this is a good place for me to mention Night Bitch, which after a while of me thinking about how is this going to play for Academy voters, reading the book, my assumption was that it was going to go for a more surreal horror situation. And it seems like, and then the trailer came out, and the trailer was like all mainstream comedy. And now that we actually have reviews, it feels like the movie is kind of doing both, but it's like one foot in the other. It's not fully committed. And some people like it, but I don't think it's well respected enough to get into picture. This really feels, I have it 9 for actress, I have it 9 for screenplay, but it really feels like this movie is going to be an Amy Adams or bust type thing. And given how strong Best Actress is, I don't know if it's going to be able to crack, if she's going to be able to crack the top 5, but more on that with Best Actress. So going from adapted screenplay to original screenplay, I believe it's still, I've taken The Apprentice out of the top 5. So we now know for a fact that The Apprentice is coming out this year, which is good and exciting, and I do think that that movie could still pack a big splash, knowing that it's coming out in October, like right as we're gearing up to the election. But I will say, having seen the trailer, it doesn't fill me with a whole lot of confidence in that the movie's going to be super, super good or engaging. And I feel like the movie's definitely contending for the actors, but I don't know. We'll have to wait and see how much of a phenomenon it becomes, because I feel like it could be a big thing, or it could be something that people just don't really care about because people are tired of hearing about Trump. September 5th, this is one of the few places where I acknowledge that. It feels like that one doesn't have as much reviews, but those who have seen it are really excited about it. But then there's also people saying it's pro-Israel, and I get the sense that, again, given the political feelings going on right now, maybe the Academy isn't going to quite want to go there. We'll really have to wait and see. Moving on to Best Supporting Actor. So this is funny. So way back at the beginning of the year, everyone was really, really eager to declare Samuel L. Jackson the frontrunner to win for The Piano Lesson. And I actually had a little bit of skepticism because I knew that when he was nominated for the Tony for the play, that people were saying that, oh, he's just getting on because he's Samuel L. Jackson. And part of me was like, how substantial is this role/performance? But then over time, I sort of became convinced, because the idea of Samuel L. Jackson winning an Oscar is really, really enticing. And so we all wanted it to be true. But it became very evident as soon as the reviews came in that not only was Samuel L. Jackson not winning for this movie, he's not getting nominated for this movie. Like, I think the role is actually, like, cut down from what it was on stage. And people were, like, shocked. It was like the reviews were talking about every other actor and not even mentioning what he was doing. They mentioned he was in the movie. That's about it. So Samuel L. Jackson is no longer a contender. And I think a lot of us sort of just put Guy Pearce in number one because we don't really know who else. Supporting actor does feel weak in terms of picking a winner. And so, yeah, the reviews for The Brutalist are strong. The reviews for Guy Pearce are strong. Let's just pop him in there. And everyone else, we don't really know. I think Norton, maybe Culkin, maybe Tucci. I know that Macklin and Pearce are getting in. And that's kind of it. There's some, I just feel like I don't know with this category and that it could go down any number of ways. In terms of nominations, like Jeremy Strong, maybe, Mark Hamill, maybe, if the movie catches on. I decided to put Adam Pearson at number 10 because I think he does have a narrative, but I just don't know. I just don't know what the category. Also, Conclave, I feel like Lithgow's not happening, but Tucci could. It's kind of hard to say because I did get the sense from reading the book that it's a lot of one-on-one scenes between Fiennes and the other characters, and that it's kind of split. I think this is getting into ensemble, but I don't know if there's going to be a lot of consensus on who is the standout. And if they push Tucci as a standout, then, I mean, Tucci's a beloved actor, so I think this nomination could definitely still happen, but there's definitely a lot of unknowns that are up in the air. Best Supporting Actress. So I've moved Zoe Saldana into number one. We know she's going supporting. The movie, it's one of those situations where she's kind of the protagonist, so it's very much category fraud, but that could help her. It's either Saldana or Daniel Deadweiler who is getting the standout notices of the piano lesson. Those reviews that weren't mentioning Samuel L. Jackson were entirely dedicated to her. And now that more reviews have come in, it's starting to seem like this movie is Daniel Deadweiler or bust. And then Saoirse Ronan. So I feel weird because I have Ronan reasonably contending in both supporting actress and lead actress, and I'm not really sure which she has the better chance. I want her to win an Oscar this year, but I don't know for which movie she has the better chance. So we'll have to wait and see. Felicity Jones, I think she's getting carried along for the ride because Brutalist is getting nominated everywhere. And then Ariana Grande, we know officially that she's going supporting, and like Saldana, it's very much a co-lead role, so I think that could help her. And, this is the one place where I have Joker Folie à Deux because we know now that Gaga is supporting. It feels kind of crazy for me because I was hearing the rumors about that early on, and it's surreal to imagine someone of her caliber going supporting, but evidently that's what seems to be happening. But even then, I do kind of doubt that she could get nominated because I have the feeling that people are just underwhelmed by the movie as a whole. So, yeah, we'll have to wait and see. Ingenue Ellis, I thought she was a big contender, but I'm hearing she's not, again, not in the movie very much. And I think actually the movie's just not going to be a contender for acting, and it's more a directing visual style. Best Actor. Okay, so Best Actor is kind of finalizing in a weird way, I think around 6 names. Brody, Chalamet, Domingo, Fiennes, those 4 seem locked, and then the last slot is either Stan or Craig. I feel like this happens all the time. There's like 6 names, and we just need to figure out which one is the 6. And I have Brody winning because I think the movie is a big contender across the board. I want to have Chalamet winning, but I just don't know if the movie's going to get into picture, and I think that could be the big stumbling block. I no longer have Domingo at number 1 because of I've heard all these things about the movie. I think the movie's falling overall, as I'll get to in picture. And I am going to put Stan on over Craig, but I do think it is close between them. And I just feel like, by the way, the reviews for Queer are not the best, and seems to suggest this is a Daniel Craig or bust type deal. And then the other 4 we don't know. Juror number 2, we thought was coming out next year, but is getting an AFI premiere. So we'll have to wait and see if that's good. Fingers crossed. But as of right now, I feel pretty confident about the top 6, at least. Best Actress. Okay, so still the same top 5, but a lot of movement in the bottom 5. Fernanda Torres enters the race. The Academy has been more open to foreign language performances in recent years, so maybe that could happen. But I'm also hearing strong things about both Kidman and Jean-Baptiste. Both of them are very much the anchors of their respective films. I don't know how well the movies are going to get on outside of these central performances, but we'll have to wait and see. And Amy Adams, as mentioned before, does give a good performance. People are saying she does really, really go for it in this role. But again, we're not really sure how the movie itself will perform. Now, in terms of what's actually getting nominated, I feel very, very confident about the top 3. Jolie and Erivo. I mean, Maria, I think, got strong reviews, but I think people really like Jolie. People are like just defaulting to putting her in. I don't want to say defaulting. It's hard to tell sometimes because it's hard to read everything. Sometimes when the reviews are first coming out, you read one review and it says it's really positive, then you read another review and it's really negative, and it takes a while to get a sense of what the consensus is. So I'm still not 100% sold on what the consensus is regarding Maria. Best Director. So this is, again, pretty competitive. There's a couple different people who could contend, and I have Brady Corbett at number 1 for now because of the sheer audacity of that film and that it fully goes there from a director who people weren't expecting this type of thing from. But Baker, Audiard, they're solidly in. Ramel Ross, I think, is in. I don't think he's winning anymore, unfortunately, but I think the same, like with Terrence Malick for Tree of Life, like with Jonathan Glazer for Zone of Interest, people are going to appreciate the swing enough that they're going to nominate him, but I don't know if he can win. And the last slot is actually tricky. Part of me is seriously asking the question, should I take Villeneuve out and put in Steve McQueen? We haven't seen Blitz yet, so we don't know for sure. It would kind of suck for Villeneuve to get snubbed twice in a row, but I feel like it's possible. Have Villeneuve in there for now, but we'll see. It's tight. It's tight. And that brings me to Best Picture, and I have a lot to say, because for most of the year, I felt pretty confident that Sing Sing was going to win. And maybe not super confident, because near the end I was kind of losing that hope with the box office performance, but I was still thinking that A24 could launch a Coda-style campaign where they go really, really hard at the end of the process and they invite the actors to everything. And the reason why I don't think that's happening anymore is because A24 acquired The Brutalist. And I don't think A24 is going to be able to do that kind of really, really strong campaign for one movie if they've also got this other movie that is a big, big across-the-board contender. Like, how are they going to be able to juggle both of those? It almost, and maybe this is a little harsh, but it almost feels like they abandoned Sing Sing for the shiny new toy. So I no longer think Sing Sing is winning Best Picture, but what is winning picture? Could it be The Brutalist? Maybe. The reviews are certainly glowing across the board. The only thing that's giving me pause, well, first is the length, but also there's the whole notion that we just gave Best Picture to this period piece epic and I feel like they're going to want to go with something smaller. I've noticed that there tends to be a pendulum effect where the movie that wins Best Picture one year tends to be the opposite of what wins the following year. I don't know, but I get the sense that it's going to be something a little bit smaller. And I was sort of torn between Anora and Amelia Perez for a while. Amelia Perez is Netflix, and Netflix is certainly going to push it hard and be like, hey, we haven't won Best Picture yet. This could be it. But the more I kept looking at the reviews for both movies, I feel like there's a lot more naysayers for Amelia Perez than there are for Anora. Anora, I feel like pretty much everybody likes. Even the people that you wouldn't necessarily think would like it. And, I mean, they did give Best Picture to Midnight Cowboy back in 1969, so it's not crazy for them to give it to a movie about a sex worker. I do think, as of right now, Anora is sort of what I'm defaulting to. And it does seem to be what everyone else is defaulting to as well. So I wish I could be a little bit bolder and be like, I think Wicked is winning picture, but I am going to go with the safe option here. Anora just seems to be what makes the most sense. The top 5, I can tell you this for certain, the top 5 are all getting nominated. Nickel Boys I feel good about. Conclave I feel pretty good about. Blitz, we don't know, but the trailer does look very promising. And then the last 2 slots are where it gets tricky. I feel like most people have this top 8, but aren't really sure what to do with the last 2 slots. I have Wicked for now because I still have faith in it, and I have Saturday Night, even though it lost the TIFF Audience Award, but I'm just like, you know what, maybe it can still get in with just picture and screenplay. Everything else, I don't know. Like, The Apprentice, maybe. A Complete Unknown, maybe. Life of Chuck, we'll see. I feel like this is where... It's funny, because after the TIFF festivals, some stuff gets cleared up, and some stuff gets more confusing. I still feel really strong about the top 5, and 6, 7, 8, I feel okay about, and then 9 and 10 is really just guesswork. And so... as much as I would love to toy with the idea of the wild robot, I know it's never going to happen. And I just feel like Wicked makes sense and Saturday Night makes sense. But at this point, we're going to have to see how the race shakes out. I don't know what's going to happen between now and the next... Well, I'll tell you what's going to happen. Blitz is going to premiere, and that's going to give us a little bit of insight. And maybe we'll also have the Gotham nominations, so we'll be starting to get into the heat of awards season. But it's gonna take some time, and also with everything going on in the election, we'll see if The Apprentice is able to capitalize on that. We'll see. I mean, Conclave also is a movie that's capitalizing on the election in a certain way, so we'll see what happens with that. I think this is a very complicated award season. It's always difficult when there's an award season and an election in the same year, and I think there's an argument to be made that based on the outcome of the election, will we want to go with something happier? Will we want to go with something more bleak? I really don't know. But as of right now, this is what I feel the most confident in. And then I'm not very confident in, because we're getting to that time of year. This is the problem with award season, is that the further into the season you go, you get to the point where things are changing on a daily basis, and it becomes harder and harder to be confident in your predictions because you keep wanting to change them. And it's going to get harder and harder right down to the wire of nomination day. But as of right now, this is what I'm predicting. So thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you next time. Take care.